All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this press conference, which is about the countries and companies that are fueling the genocide that is ongoing in Palestine. As we are here today, over 40,000 people, the majority of which are children, have been killed since Israel's siege on Gaza began just over a year ago. Israel has forced millions into displacement and into severe deprivation of food, water, and energy. Meanwhile, countries and companies are profiting from fueling that. When I see what is happening today in Palestine, I cannot help but to see what my ancestors experienced in Eastern Europe during the Holocaust. So much of that trauma and pain is now being used to justify what Israel is doing. And with that, I say, not in my name. And I call on the companies and countries, including my own, the United States, to stop fueling Israel's genocide and end their complicity in these atrocities. So now I'm going to go into the report Behind the Barrel, which Oil Change International released this August. So our research starts with the petroleum that enters Israel. That has to be through seaborne shipments. This, using the commodity databases and satellite imagery, we actually tracked 65 shipments of crude oil and refined petroleum to Israel between October 21st, 2023 and July 12th, 2024. This is equal to a combined 4.8 million tons. We tracked 46 oil shipments, which was equivalent to 4.1 million tons. Just since the ICJ's ruling on plausible genocide, 46 of this volume was shipped. Of the 7 countries that we found exporting crude oil to Israel, Azerbaijan is the leading supplier, accounting for about 30%. This comes through the BTC pipeline, which is operated by BP, and then offloaded into Turkish ports. Also notable is that at least one of the shipments of these unknown origin was loaded from Egypt via the Sumed pipeline. Major international oil companies account for 35% of the volume of the crude oil shipment. BP and Chevron each lead with 8% each. We also found 19 shipments, or 700,000 tons, of refined products to Israel. The largest of which, I'm ashamed to say, is U.S. military-grade jet fuel, JP8, it's called, from a Valero refinery in Corpus Christi, Texas. Any of these shipments could have been used for military use, and we know the military requires massive amounts of fuel for this escalation. The Guardian found that at least one Israeli refinery has military contracts, and there are lots of evidence of military vehicles being refueled at civilian gas stations. The Israeli government has been very opaque about this, and if they would ever disclose what military fuel usage looks like, we would welcome it for this report. I forgot to change the slide. There's that slide. Too many things at once. Finally, it's clear that legal experts have said that given the ICJ's ruling, both the countries and the companies that I've talked about today and in this report are at risk of being complicit in the genocide under the Genocide Convention. This is an extremely serious situation, and our panelists here today, who come from many different backgrounds and many different campaigning experiences, will talk more about specific countries and companies that are a part of this complicity and call for an end to the support of this genocide. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Abir Butma, who is from Pengon, Friends of the Earth, Palestine.
Thank you very much. While people in Gaza are facing one of the largest cases of genocide in the recent history, the world is witnessing irreversible devastation caused on Palestine at the hands of Israel, bearing the direct implications of this reality on the environment through hypothetical statements about human rights and climate justice while arming genocide, while standing by and watching as the Palestinian people are facing genocide. Palestinian rights must be at the heart of climate actions to deliver the results we need in these climate negotiations. We need the countries to live up to their promises and take concrete actions. Rich countries claiming climate justice or gender justice leadership are the ones arming and financing Israeli genocide against Palestinian people, spending trillions on war or bombs. The fossil fuel companies that are burning our planet are the ones fueling this genocide and profiting from the war and destruction. Shameless peace washing and greenwashing at COP29. As more and more Palestinians are killed and more devastation of the environment in pumping, COP29 host Azerbaijan remains the leadership supplier of petroleum for Israeli war machine. During the genocide, oil from Azerbaijan has made up more than a fourth of Israel's oil imports. This oil is transported through the BTC pipeline to Turkey for shipping. The pipeline is the majority owned by the British Petroleum and the Azerbaijan state oil company, SOCAR. Today, we are calling on states, those that speak for Palestinian and claim to support our rights, and an end to genocide, to match their words with actions. In June this year, Colombia took the historic decision to stop coal exports to Israel, cutting it off from around 70% of its supply. This is something that we need others to replicate, including Turkey, South Africa, and Brazil. South Africa has showed a great steps in calling justice for Palestine and charging Israel with genocide at International Criminal Court. Yet, at the same time, are still fueling Israel's genocide of Palestinian people in Gaza and are now Israel's biggest coal provider to Israel. Brazil, too, has expressed solidarity with the Palestinian people, but the ties between the ongoing violations, militarism, and climate change are ignored by their investing in fossil fuel and their continuing exporting to Israel of 9% of its oil supply. In response to the Israel's ongoing impunity, what we need is a total global energy embargo against Israel until it ends the genocide and its regime of apartheid, of ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people. What we need is a corporations to stop financing the arms industry. We won't only say stand with Palestinian people. Rich countries must fund climate justice, not genocide. It's now more important than ever for climate policy at COP29 to take concrete actions to end genocide and stop fueling the war. Defund genocide, climate justice now, and fund climate justice and take actions now. There is no climate justice without Palestinian liberation. Thank you.
Next up, we'll hear from Sadie DeCoste from Tipping Point, UK.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sadie, and today I'm going to talk about BP's role in upholding colonial systems and harming communities, particularly through their role as a major supplier of oil to Israel. British petroleum originated as a key enabler of the British Empire. Its precursor emerged in the early 1900s, extracting and exploiting in the land currently known as Iran. For decades, the British government and its imperial business partners had exclusive rights to Persian oil, despite resistance from local communities. BP was also a key player in the colonial exploitation of Nigeria. The colonial British government established legislation requiring Nigerian oil concessions to be granted only to British companies. By the 1960s, more than 40% of Nigeria's oil was being sold to Britain. BP and Shell's history of oil exploitation in Nigeria, which were a strategy of British colonialism, contribute to ongoing political and economic challenges in the country today. British colonialism, of course, shaped the world. The violent destruction of communities and ecosystems everywhere has an ongoing legacy. We see it in the poverty that makes some people more vulnerable to climate impacts than others. We see it in the unequal power relations that are played out in the halls of this COP. And we see it in the ongoing plunder of the global South for the profits of the global North. Britain built its enormous wealth by stealing from other countries, and this could not have happened without BP's oil. BP's oil fueled the British Navy as it expanded the British Empire. Oil became a commodity, generating profits using global trade routes that were also set up through colonization. BP's historic colonial harms continue today through its reckless carbon pollution. BP is one of the top 10 largest carbon emitters in the world. We know that in order to meet the 1.5 degree temperature target, there is no room for new oil and gas projects. Yet an analysis by Global Witness projects that BP will emit 185 million tons of CO2 in 2050, 6 times more emissions than the 5 worst climate-impacted countries emitted in 2021 combined. So between 2030 and 2050, BP is estimated to cause billions of dollars of loss and damage. And we're seeing this in communities all around the world today that are impacted by extreme weather and climate-induced disasters. And yet, BP scaled back its climate targets and will continue to invest in new fossil fuel projects and extend the life of existing projects. And while energy bills rose to record highs in 2022, BP's profits doubled, reaching £23 billion. And all the while, BP is complicit in upholding violent regimes around the world. BP is among the top corporate suppliers of oil to Israel. It operates and is the largest owner of the BTC pipeline, which transports Azeri oil that is ultimately sent to Israel. An investigation by Energy Embargo for Palestine indicates how some of this oil is refined into jet fuel that supplies the IDF. And BP has also been granted gas exploration licenses in occupied Palestinian waters. By providing it with fuel, BP enables the Israeli government to commit genocide in Gaza. BP's shareholders, alongside the Azeri oil company SOCAR, are profiting from the slaughter of Palestinian children. It is clear that BP owes reparations to communities around the world affected by their harms. We need to make big polluters like BP pay for loss and damage. An analysis by Global Justice Now estimates that they owe between 55 and 61 billion US dollars in climate reparations each year until 2050. BP is still causing active harm through its pollution and neo-colonial violence. If we want this injustice to end, we need to shut down BP. BP has always been an instrument of colonial violence. It continues to be, and it intends to be in the future unless we shut it down. Thank you.
And next we will hear from Mohammed Usraf from the Palestinian Youth Negotiation Team.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali. Echoing on what my colleagues have said, we all want injustice to end. The only way forward is that we call out on corporations and demand an energy embargo. What Ali has mentioned here is the injustice, but also the political engineering seen by so many different corporations all over the world. And it's not just political engineering, but rather colonialism that continues and prospers in our modern world through our systems. And it's time that we call for it to end. The United Nations, being a multilateral setting, allows for us to have this convening, whether to discuss climate action or to come together as youth and civil society, indigenous people and vulnerable populations. It yet remains a path towards sustainability as well as liberation. We need to move collectively and in unity for us to reach the path. In order to reach justice, we need to call out the injustices in our system. What I see here is that it's a dire moment for all Palestinians, for all indigenous people, and all climate activists. These corporations have continued to fuel and supply the genocide in Gaza. The ICJ court ruling remains helpless at the hand of the Israelis and at the hand of the larger system that we all remain part of. The reason for that is due to the power imbalance that we just cannot shake off. The only way forward is that we all unite and act. I think the only thing that we can all do is push. I don't need your solidarity. I do not need your solidarity. I don't think Palestinians need your solidarity, not the Palestinians back home and not the Palestinians abroad. We need way more than that. We're all in the system and we're all privileged and secure enough to be here. We might represent many, but this representation did not come for free, nor did we work for it, but we're privileged enough to be part of it. And that exactly is the issue with the system, is that we do not choose to be here. So the only way forward is that we acknowledge the privilege that we have and we push for it. I think the ICJ is the path towards justice, except that it needs to be reformed and it needs to be reoriented. It's time that we ask our colleagues and we push our communities to try to reorient that framework, to try to redefine justice for the Palestinians and for youth all over. For the average Palestinian to have seen and witnessed the amount of death all over the country, to witness the environmental devastation. And the environmental devastation is not just about climate change, but it's just about the fact that Gaza is inhabitable. Reports by the UNEP have stated that Gaza is inhabitable. UNDP reports have said that Gaza needs 50 years to be rebuilt. That means I cannot go back home until 50 years from now. Gaza remains inhabitable, its water remains unsafe, and diseases continue to spread. If that is not a symptom of the larger disease that is in our society and in our system, then I don't know what is. These reports have highlighted the ways that we can all act and the corporations that are to blame. And we're all complicit being here if we do not continue to act. It is time that we all collect ourselves and move forward together. We need political will, and I demand that we need reform from our governments, our Arab governments, governments from the global north and governments from the global south, to unite and create a larger coalition. We demand it, and we demand it for justice in our system. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our incredible speakers for what they delivered here right now and also their ongoing work on this issue. I'd like to move it to questions, prioritizing questions from the press. So if there are media here with any questions, please raise your hand, and we would love to answer it. All right, well, that's great. We are open to questions from non-members of the press as well. Yeah, the man in the front in the white shirt.
Thank you so much for your bravery, your words, and your leadership, and for taking the time to share with us today. I'm wondering if you could share just what it's like to be here so far at COP29 and what you're looking for from the rest of the time that we all have here together. What would you call on for the folks in this room to be prioritizing?
No, I think it's for everyone. In the Palestinian perspective, I think it's, yeah.
All right. So I'm here leading the Palestinian Youth Climate Negotiation Team. The reason we did that is because we need more Palestinian participation. The way I see justice sort of being served here is that we need more Palestinian representation. It begins by representation. It begins by meaningful participation. Youth participation or not, I fully detest the idea of tokenizing Palestinians as well as youth systems So I thought that what other way to do it other than by having Palestinians run it themselves. So we want to start off by planting the seed in this system, the seeds of hope, the seeds of justice, the seeds of Palestinians, and we try to expand. I think there needs to be more effort in terms of greening education and influencing educational policy all over, especially in Palestine. Although tremendous devastation all over the world and tremendous just horror in Gaza especially, the question of development remains there. Although the SDGs are extremely just violated, and I do not think that they fit in the perspective of the Middle East, I think we can definitely use them as a model that we can build on moving forward. The reason I say that is because all those SDGs call for a more sort of sustainable path towards development and a more sustainable approach towards building a society. And considering the de-development state in Gaza and in the West Bank, I still think that we should push through utilizing and leveraging this, again, the secure space and the privilege that we have. So we are here to push for as much as we can, have bilaterals. I had just recently met with the Secretary General, pushed for the idea of establishing an international committee on the question of Palestine to unify NGOs that have come here from the Global South, but also continue pushing global corporations and countries from the Global North. And this is one of our strategies, but it really just applies from all ends, whether it's youth empowerment and capacity building, or doing research the way Oil Change International and Ali has displayed to us today, or pushing for more advocacy efforts and campaigns the way the global energy embargo for Palestine has done. So we try to do as much as we can, and I really hope that answers your question. But ultimately, being here at the COP summit, we do try to focus as much as possible, considering the tragedies. So we do see that there's a very strong parallelism and a very strong link between climate and conflict, whether it's through the report or whether it's through the evil system that is pretty mutual in both conflict and climate situations, which is, again, this power imbalance. So it's just more about being critical about how do we perceive the system, how do we utilize it, because we always come here to COP and we always have the same campaigns and actions. So I think it's about time that we take a step back and be a bit more strategic about how our actions are meant to, just strike a nerve. But I hope that helps. Thank you.
What we need is a concrete actions regarding to ending genocide in Palestine, pushing your countries everywhere to put Israel under accountability and charge Israel with genocide. We call the countries that support Palestinian rights to end and to energy embargo against Israel, which is fueling the war and fueling the genocide. As I mentioned, we request from the countries that advocate for Palestinian rights and leading voices in calling the protection of human rights, like Turkey, Brazil, South Africa, to end supporting Israel with fuel, and which is the causing for the genocide and killing more Palestinians. Thank you.
Yes, our friend in the blazer.
Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm from Friends of the Earth Ireland. I'm not a member of the press, but what I really do notice is that no press has come today to say that they want to ask you a question. However, they've been very responsive to you when we've been doing demonstrations outside. And I'm just wondering, with such a kind of clear call and lots of sharing of information, why is it that there's more attention paid to when we're crying, when we're screaming, and when there's really clear information that you want to be shared? So would you mind just commenting on that?
Yeah, so her question was why the press is very active coming to actions about Palestine, where people are expressing sadness and rage, and there are limited press here, maybe none, when we are talking about the data and have such a clear call to action.
Well, I think we've reached way past the point of looking at the data. I mean, the current Ministry of Health has said that the death count in Gaza has reached 55,000, but it's been that way for the past several months. Reports have said that it reached 250,000. It's not that data remains now just, on the question of is it really legitimate or is it really representable of reality. I see it that regardless of what the data is, it's just a tremendous tragedy. It's what's happening is extremely awful. And the only way we get to humanize the situation is that we hear from the people. We try to understand what really is this next level of tragedy that data cannot really put into our minds or conceptualize. So the idea here is that the press would really want to go to the actions to deliver that as a direct sort of perspective from the people to understand what their call is, because the data is not going to show you. The data is going to tell you that, oh, we need to define it as genocide because we need to hold accountability and we need to reclaim justice. But we've all seen how that has failed us 70 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, and now. And now more than ever. We've never seen such tragedy. Even from the climate lens, we've never seen such an increase. For 9 consecutive years, an increase in military spending. We've reached $2.4 trillion. I think, again, whatever the data is, what we see is that this just displays an increasing amount of inhumanity, an increasing amount of disunity. For the people to invest so much in the murder of one another, I really don't think the data can display what I've just said, but stories of people at the actions can definitely do so. And I'm pretty sure there's press here, but maybe undercover. Thank you.
I think 1 year passed with more killing people in Gaza Strip, and we cannot wait for more people to be killed. The year that passed convert Gaza Strip to unlivable area. With 43,000 of Palestinians were killed. So we cannot wait for more flowering language and more negotiations. We need concrete action to cease fire now and to stop funding genocide by fueling Israel and supporting Israel with fuels from different countries. We cannot wait for statements. We cannot wait for soft languages, solidarity languages. Yeah, we appreciate all the solidarity actions, but now we cannot wait for more until now. Until when? So we need actions now to end genocide now and to stop fueling this genocide. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. I see over there.
Hi, my name's Max from the University of Oxford. Thank you all for your leadership today. It's been truly inspiring. I'm curious to know more about the idea of the energy embargo on Israel. What could be a potential political pathway to achieving that? Are there any historical precedents or lessons we can learn from? And what are the key states to engage in that? Thank you.
So the question was the political history to name an example of energy embargoes in history and what the political steps to get there are. I will raise one example, particular to this, is that Colombia has actually instated an embargo on coal imports to Israel because of the tragedies happening in Palestine and the campaigning of folks calling for an energy embargo. So that is one example. Abir or Mohammed or Sadie, do you all have other points here?
What we demand is to replicate and to replicate the Colombian achievements by boycotting and ending support fuel to Israel, and also the Turkish government that claims that the flow of oil has been ended, but we know that this is not true, and the shipments have continued unabated until end of October. So there is different supporters for Israelis in order to continue their genocide. And there is a strong linkages between fuel supporting Israel with fuel that killing more Palestinians and damaging and destroying the Palestinian environment.
I also do want to say that in 1973, after the Yom Kippur War, we did witness an Arab oil energy embargo, which was the first embargo, and I think it definitely had worked. One of the people that definitely talks about this a lot, and whose father was actually quite supportive of this idea, was Mu'in Rabbani, and his father played such an interesting role because Mu'in, being a Palestinian, born in Kuwait, grown in the Netherlands, this embargo targeted the Netherlands, targeted Germany, targeted the United States back then. And it just definitely struck the nerve back then, and I think that could definitely be used as an example. And it was also one of the first oil crises in the Middle East. But generally, the oil and energy embargo, the reason it's significant here is exactly because of the data that Ali has shown here, and also because of the fact that we all talk about demilitarization and military spending in the climate perspective. So demilitarization, less military spending, having more money go towards mitigating climate change, but also towards honestly developing Gaza at the moment after what has happened. Yet it just remains a question with no accountability, and thus demanding an energy embargo is the only way to force that accountability. And it really only comes by demanding change from Arab governments, and we try to push so from the United Nations. I hope that answers your question.
And with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I hope that you feel inspired to take action to continue to demand an end to this genocide and an end to these corporations and these countries that are continuing to fuel the atrocities that folks are experiencing in Palestine. Our panelists will be available for questions and interviews outside of the press conference room, and I hope you all have a lovely evening.